The 10,023rd meeting of the Security Council is resumed. I wish to remind all speakers to limit their statements to no more than 3 minutes in order to enable the Council to carry out its work expeditiously. I now give the floor to the representative of Spain.
Madam President, I thank you for the opportunity to address this Council at a moment of cautious hope in the Middle East that we must seize upon to intensify our efforts to restore peace and stability. The New York Declaration for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution, together with the United States Peace Plan, opens a new and hopeful space for dialogue and diplomacy. The pressure exerted by the international community has been decisive in halting hostilities and securing the release of hostages. We're very grateful to the mediators and we welcome the US peace plan. However, we do need more definition of the timeline. All of our efforts should go towards one goal, the effective implementation of the two-state solution. We can only make progress if the Palestinian Authority reclaims its rightful role, bridging the divide imposed between the West Bank and Gaza and providing essential services to the Palestinian population. Given the freezing of due financial transfers by the government of Israel, Spain, together with Norway, France and Saudi Arabia, has launched the Emergency Coalition for Palestine. This is a temporary financial mechanism to strengthen the PA's capacities, and we urge all present here to support this initiative. Furthermore, regarding the transitional governance bodies, we urge that the Palestinian Authority be included. These bodies must eventually transfer full governmental functions in Gaza and the West Bank to the PA. Until that time, we must continue strengthening the PA to ensure its legitimacy and prevent financial collapse. On security and stabilization, the deployment of an international stabilization force will be a key deterrent to changing dynamics on the ground. Its creation must take place under UN auspices and with a Security Council mandate enabling Palestinian security forces to progressively assume their responsibilities in Gaza. As for reconstruction, we must align our efforts and mobilize the necessary funds. To this end, we support the conference to be convened by Egypt in the coming weeks. Despite progress made, however, allow me to emphasize the seriousness of the ongoing humanitarian crisis affecting the population of Gaza. The rapid and large-scale entry of humanitarian aid was and remains an absolute priority. Spain welcomes the advisory opinion of the ICJ, which unequivocally determines Israel's obligations under international humanitarian law as the occupying power in Palestine. We strongly call for UN agencies, particularly UNRWA, and international NGOs to be able to operate on the ground unhindered in order to alleviate the suffering of the 2 million Palestinians living in the Strip. Madam President, lasting peace, of course, means that there must be respect for the principles of the UN Charter, including respect for territorial integrity, especially in Lebanon and Syria. With regard to Lebanon, Spain reiterates its call on the parties to fully comply with Security Council Resolution 1701 and with the November 2024 ceasefire agreement. Spain will maintain its support for Lebanon's stability, particularly through UNIFIL, which continues to play a vital role on the ground. Spain condemns the recent Israeli attacks near UNIFIL positions and demands that its mandate be respected and that all parties ensure the safety of its personnel. The international community must increase support for the Lebanese armed forces and the internal security forces so that they can fully carry out their assigned duties. Spain will continue to support the Syrian people to advance towards a peaceful and inclusive political transition, demanding respect for Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, free from destabilizing interference by third parties. Syria's stability is key to achieving lasting peace across the region. Spain reiterates that there is no military alternative to a diplomatic solution that ensures the exclusively peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. It is urgent to resume negotiations immediately to reach an agreement as soon as possible. We now have the opportunity to put an end to this cycle of violence in the region, and to achieve it, Spain will continue to champion dialogue with regional partners, joining efforts in favor of peace and stability in the Middle East. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Spain for his statement, and I give the floor now to the representative of Namibia.
Thank you, Madam President. Esteemed members of the Security Council, I wish to extend our gratitude to the Russian Federation for convening this important meeting and to the briefers for their insightful contribution regarding the ongoing situation in Gaza. Madam President, recent developments in the conflict have been alarming and heartbreaking. While we welcome the diplomatic efforts to end the violence, including the recent Gaza Peace Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh and the signing of the plan to cease hostilities in Gaza, we must recognize that these steps, though commendable, do not yet signify the end of the enduring suffering that the Palestinian population has faced for decades. The full implementation of the provisions agreed upon is crucial, and we urge the Israeli apartheid regime to uphold its commitments to the Sharm el-Sheikh Agreement. The occupying power must demonstrate genuine dedication to international law and fulfill its obligations as a member of this esteemed organization. We are encouraged by the return of thousands of Palestinians to what remains of their homes in northern Gaza, following the unprecedented destruction of their properties and the loss of life of the Palestinians in their thousands. Like all the peoples across the world, the Palestinian people have an undeniable right to a dignified return to peace and to self-determination, rights that they have been denied for too long. As we move forward, Namibia emphasizes the urgent need to rebuild the infrastructure across Gaza, which is essential for the restoration of normalcy and dignity for its inhabitants. This meeting is an opportunity to remind us that the General Assembly resolutions and the International Court of Justice's advisory opinions have declared Israel settlement practices as illegal and have demanded an end to these actions. Up to now, Israel, the occupying power, has disregarded all the rulings and thus disregarding international law. In light of the recent positive momentum marked by the successful convening of the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of a two-state solution, as well as the signing of the ceasefire, Israel must pursue the same path towards ending its illegal settlement activities and the annexation of Palestinian territories, allowing the Palestinian Authority full control over its land and resources is a critical step towards addressing the aspirations of the Palestinian people for an independent, sovereign, and prosperous state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. Madam President, Namibia welcomes the resumption of the deliveries of the life-saving food and medical supplies to Gaza at a scale, which the population has been deprived of since the onset of Israel's military operation in 2023. Humanitarian assistance, needless to say, is not a privilege. It is a normal and legal obligation that must be adhered to under international humanitarian law and the United Nations resolutions. We therefore call for an end to any attempt to disband UNRWA or impose limitations on its operations in the occupied Palestinian territories. UNRWA remains the backbone of the humanitarian support for the Palestinian people, equipped to meet critical needs in education, health, sustainable livelihoods. Let us reaffirm our commitment to ensure that UNRWA is funded adequately and protected. Ultimately, the two-state solution remains the only viable path to achieving a just and lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and securing peace across the region. Namibia urges this Council to take its responsibility seriously by finding consensus to admit the State of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. Such an action would not only fulfill a long-awaited recognition of the Palestinian people's rights, but would also be a testament to the resolve of this Council to write a beautiful page in the history for future generations and to appreciate. In conclusion, Madam President, in our pursuit for a durable peace, let us renew our collective efforts and enhance cooperation to support the Palestinian people in their aspirations for statehood, self-determination, and development. Namibia holds on to the hope that the question of Palestine will be resolved without delay, allowing it to be removed from the agenda of this Council. Let us work together to make this a reality. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Namibia for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Maldives.
Thank you, President. Let me begin by thanking the Russian Federation presidency for convening this debate. The situation in Palestine remains volatile, deeply entrenched in decades of occupation, injustice, and political failure. Recent developments, including the New York Declaration, the wider recognition of Palestinian sovereignty, and the ceasefire agreements signed in Egypt this month, demonstrate the power of unity in action and reflect a deepening commitment to a just and lasting peace. That peace, however, will come only when obligations are honored, the rights of Palestinian peoples are recognized, and the illegal occupation ends. Without accountability, justice, and sustained commitment, critical windows for de-escalation and humanitarian relief will remain unfulfilled hopes rather than paths pursued. This relentless cycle of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide has carved deeper wounds into Palestinian land and into the lives of its people. These are scars that generations have been forced to inherit. When we speak of Gaza, we must speak of loss of families torn apart, homes reduced to rubble, and futures ripped away, especially from the children who have known nothing but conflict. This devastation demands accountability, grounded in the rules of law and applied without exception. Ceasefire, while necessary and urgent, is only a fragment of peace. It is merely a pause on violence, not the presence of justice. This Council now faces a choice between upholding principles and surrendering to paralysis. The question of Palestine will only be resolved when Israel allows Palestinians it forcibly uprooted from their homes to return, when Israel ends its illegal occupation, when Israel dismantles its apartheid system, and when Israel brings those responsible for decades of oppression and suffering to justice, and when Israel plays reparations to begin healing the deep wounds it has inflicted on a people denied their land, their dignity, and their futures. We call on the Council to grant full membership of the UN for Palestine, ensure immediate, safe, and unhindered humanitarian aid at scale to Gaza, support a transparent reconstruction mechanism, and uphold accountability by mandating impartial investigations. The path forward is clear: sustained, structured, and transparent peace process that delivers reconciliation, reconstruction, and accountability. The endgame must be lasting peace, a future where sovereign Palestine lives in peace, security, and mutual respect within the internationally recognized pre-1967 borders. I thank you.
Yep.
I thank the representative of Maldives for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Italy.
Thank you, Madam President. Italy aligns itself with the statement delivered on behalf of the European Union and its member states, and wish to offer the following remarks in our national capacity. The Sharm el-Sheikh Summit for Peace marked a pivotal moment for the Middle East. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, the liberation of the hostages, and the resumption of humanitarian assistance in the Gaza Strip bring us a step closer to peace. These remarkable progresses have been made possible by the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict put forward by President Trump. Italy strongly supports the US initiative and is ready to contribute to its full implementation. We call all parties to respect the agreements. Hamas must cease its rule over Gaza, as it cannot play any role in the future of Palestine. Italy will continue to support the Palestinian Authority and its program of reforms, with a view to realize Palestinian statehood and the unification of Gaza and the West Bank. In the meantime, it's urgent to enhance humanitarian assistance in close coordination with the United Nations and international civil society organizations. In the last 2 years, the Italian government has stepped up efforts at the benefit of the civilian population in Gaza in close coordination with regional partners. Italy has been at the forefront of the humanitarian response, sending critical aid with the Food for Gaza initiative and evacuating 196 Palestinian young patients, along with their families, for medical treatment. We are ready to expand our efforts for the reconstruction of Gaza with a focus on health. In this spirit, in the coming weeks, we will co-convene the international conference that Egypt is organizing on this issue. As we witnessed in the last 2 weeks, the ceasefire is fragile and the situation extremely volatile, also due to the violence spreading between Hamas and the other armed groups. The deployment of the International Stabilization Force can make a huge difference. Italy will contribute to this mission in line with our long-standing commitment to security in the area and our role in the high-level conference on the two-state solutions. We believe that a clear mandate of the Security Council would give legitimacy to this force, opening up to the contribution of the Arab states and the entire UN membership. We call on the Security Council members to adopt such a resolution in order to allow us to move forward with the US 20-point plan. Peace in Gaza is a unique opportunity for the regional stability that we cannot miss. Never before have the countries of the Middle East seemed so interconnected. Last year brought major developments, namely the fall of the Assad regime and the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, which helped break the political deadlock. We are now called upon to support Syria and Lebanon in meeting these challenges ahead. In Syria, Italy supports an inclusive and peaceful political process to achieve, through the active participation of all components of Syrian society, the recovery of the country. Internal and external factors threaten Syria's unity and stability. We welcomed the roadmap announced by Damascus with the US and Jordan to address the crisis in Suaida, and we support the implementation of the agreement with the SDF. We hope that Syria would be soon ready to join the international fight against terrorism. Turning to Lebanon, to ensure institutional strengthening is key. Italy will not fail to help the Lebanese authorities stabilize the country and undertake critical reforms. Respect for the ceasefire on both sides of the blue line, the disarmament of Hezbollah, and the monopoly of the state over the holding of weapons are essential parts of it. And at the head of UNIFIL for the 5th time, Italy will continue to strengthen the Lebanese forces in order to facilitate their full redeployment in line with the UNSC Resolution 7001. For Italy, there is a real chance to achieve a positive transformation in the entire region. We remain steadfast in our belief that dialogue, inclusiveness, and multilateral cooperation are the only viable foundations for the lasting peace in the Middle East. The road ahead is challenging, but the window of opportunity is real. The international community and the UN have a role to play in helping overcome divisions and build a future of shared security, mutual recognition, and hope. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Italy for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Chile.
Madam President, allow me to thank you for convening this debate, and I'd like to congratulate you on the conduct of your presidency during this month. We'd also like to thank Mr. Ramiz Alakbarov, Deputy Special Coordinator and Resident Coordinator of the Office of the Special Coordinator of the United Nations for the Middle East Peace Process. Chile endorses the statement delivered by Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement. My country welcomes the signing on the 8th of October of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, and we'd like to express our thanks for the mediation efforts deployed by the United States, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, which made this important step forward possible in order to reduce hostilities and protect the civilian population. Since the beginning of the conflict, Chile has constantly called for the unconditional release of all hostages held by Hamas, and in this regard we very much appreciate the return of the 20 hostages alive and the 15 deceased back to their families, and we express our solidarity with all of them. At the same time, we recognize and encourage the ongoing efforts aimed at locating the remaining bodies. We would call upon the signatories to the agreement to, in good faith, meet the acquired commitments according to the terms established and continue to make necessary efforts to achieve a comprehensive agreement. to adequately respond to humanitarian needs and guarantee the security, safety of the population, and move towards the implementation of the two-state solution in accordance with the rulings of international law and relevant resolutions of the United Nations. Madam President, Chile, as part of the core group led by Norway, very much appreciates the advisory opinion issued last Wednesday by the International Court of Justice, establishing the obligation of Israel to meet its international humanitarian law obligations, protect medical and humanitarian staff, and facilitate humanitarian assistance through the United Nations and its agencies, with particular reference to UNRWA. This decision is a fundamental reminder of the primacy of international law and of the responsibility of all states to guarantee unhindered access for humanitarian assistance when it is most required. We'd also like to reiterate our unrestricted support for the valuable work done by all humanitarian staff, in particular by UNRWA, an organism, a body that has the mandate to carry out a fundamental mission and provide services in the area of education, health, housing, and protection of Palestinian refugees. We believe it is the backbone of the humanitarian system. UNRWA has vast experience in order to implement the humanitarian response in Gaza in an appropriate manner. Madam President, despite these successes, we see that after years of conflict and the recent declaration of famine in the Gaza Strip, that occupied Palestinian territories continue to be an area of violence and instability, seriously endangering the well-being of the civilian population, and we see that humanitarian assistance is being hindered. Here we would urgently call upon all the parties to fully meet their obligations with regard to the ceasefire and to resume the path of dialogue in good faith. This is the only way to achieve just and lasting peace. We believe it is essential to put an end to the suffering of the civilian population. Their lives have deteriorated in an unacceptable manner. Improving the future of Gaza means a recovery perspective that is inclusive and sustainable, that takes into account the needs of women, elder persons, young people, children and those with disabilities. Their full and meaningful participation in the decision-making processes will be key for building the future of Gaza. Chile reiterates its firm and ongoing commitment to a political and peaceful solution to the conflict based on respect for international law, the protection of human rights, and the full respect for the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter. We would also highlight the importance of diplomacy, dialogue, and international mediation as indispensable tools in order to progress towards stability and the building of just, lasting, and sustainable peace in the region. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Chile for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Bahrain.
Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to express my deepest thanks to the Russian Federation on conducting the work of the Council this month. I would like to thank Dr. Ramiz Al-Akbarov, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, for his briefing. Madam President, as you may know, the region is going through a lot of suffering, basically due to the Palestinian question. The Middle East has gone through a number of conflicts and wars, as well as blatant violations that led to great damage that cannot be the great damage in infrastructure. We have always stressed our firm belief in the need of solving conflicts through diplomacy and dialogue to open the way for a future for future generations. You also know the historic achievement made by His Excellency President of the USA with the support of Qatar and Egypt, as well as Turkey, to reach an agreement in Gaza. The Sharm el-Sheikh Summit for Peace was also held to end the war in Gaza. It paves the way towards the implementation of the Arab Islamic plan for reconstruction as a part of the international efforts to ensure reconstruction and development in Gaza. These positive factors bode well for turning the page of conflict in the region towards peace and development. We commend the diplomatic efforts made by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic to hold the International Conference on the Peaceful Settlement of the Palestinian Question, as well as the implementation of the two-state solution last September, which led to the adoption of the New York Declaration and the increase of the number of the states that recognize the State of Palestine. In the same vein, we note one of the main important outcomes of the Arab Summit held in Bahrain in 2024, which called for holding an international peace conference in the Middle East through direct negotiations that could lead to a comprehensive and sustainable solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Madam President, in light of these positive developments, we renew our call upon the international community to support the Palestinian people so that they can have and enjoy their inalienable rights, and they can launch a political process that leads to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as a capital, in line with the two-state solution and resolutions of international legitimacy, as well as the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member at the UN. We also stress the need for seizing all practices that impede the two-state solution, including the recent activities that threaten this solution. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we stress that we stand fully ready to cooperate with the international community to ensure a safe and prosperous future for the people of the region and the world, based on our vision for peace, coexistence, and prosperity, which focuses, one, on committing to peaceful settlement of conflicts, two, promoting peace, tolerance, coexistence, and dialogue among religions, and three, promoting strategic partnerships internationally to ensure safety, security, and prosperity. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Bahrain for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President. The Kingdom of the Netherlands aligns itself with the EU and welcomes the agreement on the first phase of the comprehensive plan of President Trump to end the conflict in Gaza. We thank the US, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey for their mediation in this regard. This plan should be a turning point for peace and stability in the Middle East. 2 years of unimaginable suffering for the Palestinians in Gaza, as well as the hostages and their families, can come to an end. This is a hopeful beginning. The Kingdom of the Netherlands calls on all parties to fully implement the deal. The deceased hostages have to be returned by Hamas, and humanitarian aid must flow into Gaza. Hamas must disarm, and we condemn any action that endangers the implementation of this deal. Demilitarization and dismantling of Hamas, as well as reconstruction of Gaza, are crucial. Together with Egypt and others, the Kingdom of the Netherlands will be co-hosting a reconstruction conference in Cairo. We must also remain aware of the situation on the West Bank. The Kingdom of the Netherlands condemns plans and actions that undermine the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people and reject any plans that allude towards annexation. We call upon the Palestinian Authority to reform and call on Israel to release withheld clearance revenues. We reiterate our call for independent investigations into violations of international law. The Kingdom of the Netherlands will continue to strive for a lasting solution that has the support of both parties, for which the two-state solution remains the basis. The recent New York Declaration is an important step towards this goal. We must pursue peace, stability, and justice. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Madam President. Sri Lanka aligns itself with the statement delivered by Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement. We thank the Russian Federation for convening this open debate and for its stewardship of the Council's work on a matter that is essential to international peace and security. Madam President, after 2 years of profound human suffering, a renewed sense of hope has emerged with the ceasefire in Gaza. The region has endured far too much suffering. It brings us great relief to witness families reunited, displaced persons and hostages returning home, and much needed humanitarian assistance entering Gaza. These steps must mark crucial progress, but there remains much work to do to achieve a just and lasting peace. We must build on this momentum with renewed political courage. We commend the significant efforts led by the President of the United States of America and the tireless mediation by the Arab Republic of Egypt, the State of Qatar, and the Republic of Turkey, as well as the support extended by the broader international community in achieving this first phase of the ceasefire. However, we regret to witness the breach of this hard-earned ceasefire. Such actions will not benefit the general public in both Palestine and Israel, who are experiencing much-needed breathing space, following the mayhem that they have encountered over the last 2 years. In this context, we urge all parties to adhere fully to the terms of the ceasefire and to ensure that it becomes a durable bridge towards a permanent end to the bloodshed and suffering. Madam President, tens of thousands of civilians, most of them innocent women and children, have lost their lives. The devastation of homes, hospitals, and schools, and the collapse of essential services defy comprehension. The images of such human and infrastructural destruction will remain seared into our collective conscience for generations to come. Healing must be all-encompassing, requiring not only the rebuilding of physical structures, but also the restoration of dignity, security, and trust. The people of Gaza must be supported in this effort through immediate humanitarian aid, medical and psychosocial support, and the long-term reconstruction of essential infrastructure. Madam President, the situation in Gaza remains deeply distressing. Sri Lanka recognizes the Palestinian people's inalienable right to their own state and reiterates the importance of the early implementation of the UN General Assembly resolutions regarding a two-state solution on the basis of the 1967 borders. It is time for the international community to act decisively to bring an end to the suffering of millions. The humanitarian tragedy in Gaza only makes more urgent the need for restraint and honest dialogue. Madam President, international community must unite around the shared principles of humanity, justice, and peace. We must support the Palestinian and Israeli peoples in prioritizing peace. We hope that the ceasefire will be the first step towards a lasting peace, one in which both Israel and Palestine live peacefully side by side, and the children of both nations are free to reach their full potential and thrive. I thank you, President.
I thank the representative of Sri Lanka for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of His Excellency, Mr. Majid Abdelaziz, the permanent observer for the permanent observer mission of the League of Arab States to the United Nations.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for convening this session, and I thank Mr. Ramzi Albanov, Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East process, for his comprehensive briefing. Madam President, this open debate takes place as the dangerous situation in Gaza and across the occupied Palestinian state is at a major crossroads. There is a glimmer of hope, but there are also deep fears of failure in the implementation and of the repercussions on the political, strategic, and security situation in the Middle East as a whole. We were encouraged by the signing in Sharm el-Sheikh of the ceasefire agreement as part of a deal that remains fragile and only addresses the Gaza Strip. The implementation of the first phase began with the release of Israeli hostages and the handover of the remains of others, and the release in return of a number of Palestinian detainees as a prelude to implementing other steps to promote international engagement with the current humanitarian situation. This includes putting an end to the starvation and genocide and ensuring the delivery of humanitarian aid with the start of the implementation of recovery and reconstruction plans. This is to be followed by reaching the desired political settlement of the Palestinian cause through negotiations for a final solution between Palestinians and Israelis to implement the two-state solution, paving the way towards the full membership of the independent state of Palestine in the United Nations. The Arab League would like to begin by expressing its appreciation for the efforts of the US President Trump and his growing interest in reaching a peaceful settlement for the Palestinian cause. We also express appreciation for the intensive mediation by Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States to reach a ceasefire. We really appreciate the role of the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee entrusted with implementing the two-state solution, chaired by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and by the International Coalition for a Two-State Solution. We express our appreciation for all American, Arab, and international efforts to consolidate the ceasefire and ensure the unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid through all crossings at scale and through UNRWA. International efforts must be intensified to implement the Arab Islamic Plan for Recovery and Reconstruction adopted by the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo. Egypt is working to hold an international conference to mobilize the necessary funding for the implementation of this plan. We stress the need for Israel to implement the important ICJ advisory opinion adopted on October 22nd, which confirmed Israel's humanitarian and development obligations as an occupying power towards the UN, specifically UNRWA, and the occupied Palestinian people, including its obligation to stop the genocide and the deliberate starvation of the Palestinian people. However, this cannot succeed without the United Nations' central role in implementing the New York Declaration, which created an internationally supported political horizon for addressing the Palestinian cause in all its dimensions, not just the Gaza Strip. By implementing the two-state solution and ensuring the admission of the independent state of Palestine as a full member at the United Nations. This is reinforced by the remarkable success of the Ministerial Conference and World Summit held at the United Nations on the implementation of the two-state solution and the settlement of the Palestinian question under the leadership of Saudi Arabia and France. This resulted in a significant increase in the number of countries recognizing the state of Palestine and the adoption by the General Assembly of this important declaration by an overwhelming majority as a roadmap towards achieving these goals. Its key steps include support from the United Nations and the international community for the reform measures pledged by the Palestinian Authority and the provision of the necessary financial resources for the Palestinian government to allow it, as the Supreme Central Palestinian Authority, to extend its full control over the Palestinian territories, including the entire Gaza Strip and the West Bank, away from any other schemes or external or Israeli influence. The International Stabilization Force will be established with the approval and active participation of the Palestinian Authority in preparation for the transfer of its powers to the Palestinian Authority once the situation stabilizes. For this to happen, the extreme right-wing Israeli government must stop daydreaming and must cease its pursuit of what it calls the dream of Greater Israel. The countries of the Middle East, especially Arab countries, will not allow Israel or any other state to dominate the Middle East region under any circumstance, no matter how superior their military capabilities are with external military support. It also requires that Israel realize that its condemned military aggression against the state of Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and recently the state of Qatar will not serve its interests in the short or long term, but will lead to a larger regional confrontation with dire consequences. It should also realize that its deliberate withholding of billions of clearing funds strengthens the control of extremist forces over the situation on the ground as an alternative to the legitimate Palestinian Authority, which needs all our support and endorsement. Israel should realize that its continued religious provocation of Muslims and Christians through the repeated storming by members of its extremist government of the holy religious sites, especially Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Church of the Covenant, and other Muslim and Christian holy sites, only entrenches hatred and anger and threatens any chance of coexistence in peace and harmony. It should realize that the continuation of its fierce settlement policies, which violate Resolution 2334 and others, will not diminish the Palestinian people's attachment to recovering their stolen land, and that its policies of starvation and terrorism and its obstruction of reconstruction will not allow it to control the Gaza Strip or the West Bank, nor will it force the Palestinian people who are so attached to their land and state to leave. The free and proud Palestinian people will continue to fight for their legitimate and inalienable rights, especially their rights to establish their free, independent state on the lines of 1967 with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital, with the full support of the Arab League, its member states, the United Nations, and the entire international community. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank Mr. Abdelaziz, His Excellency, for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Saudi Arabia.
شكرا.
Thank you, Madam President, in the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the Russian Federation on its presidency of the Council this month. And we also thank you for convening this meeting on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. And thank you for the reminder of the obligations and principles of international law and the responsibility of the Security Council in the maintenance of international peace and security. I would also like to thank Mr. Ramiz Al-Akbarov, the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, for his briefing. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom reiterates its firm position towards the Palestinian people and their just cause. My country has been working for years to find a just and lasting solution to the Palestinian question. As a result of the unprecedented suffering to which the Palestinian people have been subjected in the Gaza Strip, the Kingdom has intensified its efforts to restore normalcy in the Gaza Strip and to begin reconstruction and enable the people to live in dignity in their land. Within these efforts, my country, together with France, recently led efforts to convene the conference on the implementation of the two-state solution, which resulted in the New York Declaration, as well as the recognition of the Palestinian state by a number of states. And in order to strengthen the capacity of the Palestinian Authority, the Kingdom and a number of friendly countries announced the launch of the Emergency Coalition for Financial Sustainability of the Palestinian Authority, which is a response to the unprecedented financial crisis facing the Palestinian Authority. The fund aims to stabilize the financial condition of the Palestinian Authority and ensure its ability to govern, provide services, and maintain security. Madam President, Your Excellencies, the Kingdom appreciates the active role of the U.S. President Donald Trump and the mediation efforts by our brethren in the state of Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey to begin implementation of the first phase of the cessation of war on Gaza and to create a comprehensive and just path towards peace and to alleviate the suffering of the brotherly Palestinian people, as well as a full Israeli withdrawal, a restoration of security and stability, and the start of practical steps to achieve a comprehensive and just peace based on the two-state solution. The Kingdom condemns the Israeli Knesset's recent preliminary approval of 2 bills that aim to impose Israeli sovereignty over the occupied West Bank and to legalize Israeli sovereignty over an illegal colonial settlement. The Kingdom reiterates its complete rejection of all settlement and expansionist violations adopted by the Israeli occupation authorities. In conclusion, the Kingdom calls on the esteemed Council to assume its responsibility for the implementation of the relevant resolutions in order to end the settlement activity, lift the blockade completely, protect the holy sites in Al-Quds al-Sharif, and prevent any unilateral action that aims to change the identity of the Palestinian territory, and finally, work towards the establishment of a Palestinian state in accordance with the relevant resolutions, as well as the practical steps included in the New York Declaration. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Saudi Arabia for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Armenia.
Madam President, we thank the Presidency of the Russian Federation for convening the open debate on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, and also express our gratitude to the briefers for their insightful statements. Historically, Armenia has always been genuinely interested in peace, stability, and security of the Middle East and the wider region, which, amongst others, hosts a sizable Armenian community who has always been a steadfast contributor to the progress and prosperity of the Middle East, enriching its cultural and civilizational palette. For years, the Republic of Armenia has been shouldering international efforts aimed at stabilization of situation in the Middle East. Also, as a troop contributing country to UNIFIL in Lebanon, withdrawal from where must be executed in a well-calculated and orderly manner, as we should be mindful of the legacy the UN will leave behind, as well as what opportunities can be considered for further United Nations engagement with Lebanon. Madam President, Armenia has continuously emphasized that only 2 independent neighboring states can guarantee lasting stability, security, peace, and prosperity for both the Palestinian and Israeli peoples, where all enjoy the benefits of peaceful coexistence. With this in mind, and as a long-standing supporter of the two-state solution, Armenia recognized the state of Palestine in June 2024, and subsequently, during the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, established diplomatic relations with Palestine. In this vein, Armenia also participated in the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia, and endorsed the New York Declaration. Armenia has provided humanitarian aid to Gaza, also supporting life-saving activities of UNRWA. The Armenian side has also reached an agreement with the Palestinian authorities that the Mashtots Matanadaran, the world's largest repository of ancient Armenian manuscripts, museum and research institute, will temporarily become a shelter for endangered Palestinian manuscripts. Madam President, we welcome the agreement on the ceasefire in Gaza to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access and immediate release of hostages. Most importantly, negotiations must remain the only viable means of achieving a lasting and dignified peace in the Middle East based on the two-state solution. With this vision, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, welcomed and participated in the Middle East Peace Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh upon the invitation of the U.S. President Donald Trump and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, supported by Qatar, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and others. The Republic of Armenia stands ready to support all constructive efforts aimed at bringing just and lasting peace to the Middle East, the people of the region are craving for so long. I thank you. Благодарю, госпожа председатель.
I thank the representative of Armenia for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Mauritania.
شكرا.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me at the outset to thank the Russian Federation for the diligent efforts in presiding over the Council this month. I also thank Mr. Alakbarov, Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, for his comprehensive briefing. Madam President, while my government strongly condemned the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip, which has claimed nearly 70,000 lives, most of them women and children, destroyed entire cities, and expanded across the region, violating national sovereignty in Lebanon, Syria, and the state of Qatar. Yet my government hopes that the ceasefire in Gaza resulting from the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement reached on October 13th, that this agreement will lead to an end to the war against the Palestinian people and a definitive end of their humanitarian suffering. We also value the international and regional mediation efforts undertaken by the US, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. We hope that this will be an opportunity to resume the political process aimed at establishing an independent Palestinian state along the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. This new chapter that starts with the implementation of the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement calls upon the international community, the UN, and especially the Security Council to intensify efforts to ensure the stabilization of the ceasefire and allow the adequate delivery of humanitarian aid in parallel with the implementation of other agreed upon provisions. In this context, my country renews its full support for UNRWA as a vital mechanism to assist the Palestinian people in facing the hardships caused by the ongoing occupation for the past 80 years, hardships that have tragically worsened since the aggression on Gaza began 2 years ago. This necessity was affirmed by the ICJ in its advisory opinion issued this week, which outlined Israel's obligations regarding the presence of the UN and its agencies in the occupied territories. Madam President, this phase is one of humanitarian aid, reconstruction, and permanent stabilization of the ceasefire, but it is also a decisive moment to capitalize on the growing momentum and continued recognition of the Palestinian state to adopt a two-state solution as the only political and legal solution capable of ensuring lasting peace in the Middle East. Undoubtedly, the recent two-state solution conference held in New York, initiated by Saudi Arabia and France, is a clear evidence of the support this option enjoys. The Security Council's action to translate this international consensus into tangible steps on the ground is an urgent necessity for the Council to fulfill its role in maintaining international peace and security. Madam President, achieving lasting and comprehensive peace in the Middle East requires the Council to compel Israel to fully withdraw from all occupied Arab territories and commit to non-aggression and non-violation of the sovereignty of any state. This is also an occasion for my country to reaffirm its support and solidarity with Syria, with Lebanon, and the state of Qatar in the face of the aggression and blatant violations of international law committed and continuously committed by Israel within the territories of these three countries. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Mauritania for his statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting stands adjourned.